Hello, this is Scott, and this do-it-yourself video guide will cover replacing a watch battery. These instructions will apply to multiple types of watches. This one in particular happens to have a radio receiver in it to set the time automatically from the atomic clock sources in Colorado. So let's get started. Okay, so as you see, I've already taken the screws out. I have a small set of screwdrivers, and you can see there's a screwdriver kit here, and it even includes the sizes. I'm using a number 0, probably 02, which is the smallest available Phillips head screwdriver in my set, and that's typical for most watches. You can use that. Some watches have a pry-off cover where you take a small screwdriver, maybe about this size, flat blade, and you can wedge it under a metal cover and that will pop off. This watch happens to have a plastic cover because it's a radio receiver, so they didn't want any metal near the antenna, and 4 screws that hold it down. Okay, so now when a watch has been sealed for some time, it can be difficult to get it off. So take 2 screwdrivers that have similar size flat blades, put one on either side, and then twist in opposite directions until the cover is loose. And mine actually happens to have a little bit of a bind here against the watch band, because those of you who own this watch will recognize that the watch band is not original. And then once the cover is released, carefully remove it, noting that there is a gasket in here, and it'll either be stuck to the cover, in this case it's not, or it will be inside this little channel, and you can see there's a little channel around the periphery of the electronics to keep the water out. Okay, now this one happens to have a little clamp that holds the battery cover in place, and it's got a lithium CR1620 battery in it. Watches are different, but they typically have a lithium battery for long battery life. So then what we need to do for this particular watch is wedge in here and pop the cover off of the battery cover. And we lift this out of the way. Actually, I think that's all it needs to do, and then I can just slip it out. Now this one also, the electronics will fall out of it if you turn it completely over. Okay, so now the battery is out. It's a CR1620, and I can just go to my local electronics store and buy a new CR1620. I wouldn't recommend buying any extra ones because the shelf life, you might as well buy them as you need them rather than have them in stock. Alright, we'll come back to this with the reinstallation. So when you go to the store to get your battery, you might want to check first to make sure that the old battery is indeed dead. If you have a multi-tester, of course you can measure it, and a lithium battery should be about 3 volts. And so when you're at the store, if you don't have your own tester, just ask them to see if it's got 3 volts. Keep in mind that if it's been sitting a while, it may actually read a little higher, but if it's below 3 volts, it's probably too weak. And it's probably worth a chance to replace the battery anyway, just because a new watch is probably a lot more than the battery. Okay, I'm back again with a new battery. And same manufacturer as the original. And you'll notice that it has a marking on it to indicate which is plus. There's a little plus symbol right on the end of right on the face of the cell, and you can see there's a ridge around the terminal that becomes the negative side of the battery. So now we just slide it in, and you'll notice it says plus is up plus. So just double checking that before I put the battery in. And technically it should be called a lithium cell, not a lithium battery, because there's only one cell in this. One 3-volt cell. Okay. Now it's time to center it. And then it should just push down. Click. And there is the new battery. And just to check it, I'm going to carefully turn it over and make sure the display is on. And sure enough, it is. Okay, and then we're checking the gasket still sitting in the groove just fine, so I'm going to go ahead and start putting the cover back on. And that will finish the service of this watch. And it's pretty straightforward. I recommend a cross pattern when you put the screws in, so that you tighten it evenly across instead of putting one side down too hard, and don't tighten it too hard before you get all 4 screws in, and then just kind of work around it, kind of like tightening the lug nuts on a car wheel. Same idea. And you can get these little screwdrivers with the hexagonal top on them at local electronics stores. Usually carry them, and home improvement stores, to name a couple. And because it's daytime, this watch will not synchronize to the radio source. It's trying. You can see the little blinking icon there is the receiver trying to pick up the signal out of Colorado, but because it's daytime, the signal is interfered by the sun interferes with the signal. So when it works, when it's getting the signal, it rapidly blinks. So that's a little extra information about this particular watch, but in general, if you can get the back off, there should be instructions on the cover that explain how to get the battery cover off so that you can replace the